Hello everyone and welcome to the F1 corner for this race recap of the Austrian Grand Prix won by Max Verstappen in front of Valtteri Bottas and Lando Norris. I think we're all surprised that Hamilton did not make it on the podium, but there is a reason for that. So let's not lose any time and jump right into the action, and please remember to smash the like button and to subscribe to this channel so that you do not miss any race recap of this whole 2021 Formula One season. So easy victory for Max Verstappen. Well, we say easy, but it's never easy to be in the Formula One, but he's led not only all the laps this week but also all the laps last week at this Austrian track, the Red Bull Ring. Not much to say. Clean race. Verstappen also gets out with the fast lap and now consolidating his lead in the championship in front of Lewis Hamilton by 32 points. Behind Verstappen is where all the action happened. Let's start with Lando Norris, who finished third of this race, and I think we should mention also there were a lot of penalties during this race, and we'll get through all of them a little bit later. I think some of them were actually unfair, and we can have a whole debate on that. So Lando Norris finishing third, good result, could have been probably second, but picked up a 5-second penalty after the restart of a safety car at the beginning of the race for pushing Sergio Perez off the track. So Norris finishing less than 3 seconds behind Valtteri Bottas. It was a tough race, tough fight I should say, not necessarily a tough race. Norris, after picking that penalty, was able to just make that car work, served that penalty in the pits, and came out behind the two Mercedes. And we'll get to how Bottas finished in front of Hamilton in just a moment. But Norris, happy with what happened this weekend, happy with the pace of the car. It's a track where the McLaren has always done well. So for Lando, it is a big victory. Think they could have been second, but since they have been, considering where that McLaren team is, third place is a very happy result for them. Could not bring the fight to Valtteri at the end of the race. As soon as he got into the DRS zone, the turbulence was just too much and he was not able to close the gap furthermore. For his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, starting in 13th place. It was a disappointing start, of course, 13, but was able to make with the pace of that McLaren, you know, with a teammate finishing third, that McLaren had some speed in it. Ricciardo making it into P7 at the end of the race. Probably the best he could hope in the circumstances. The Red Bulls were fast, the Ferrari were extremely fast. We will also talk about them in a few minutes. But Ricciardo, yeah, needs to get everything back together. Still not completely 100% feeling with that car. And you know, after the French Grand Prix, that was a total disaster, and after last week, which was also like very, very rough on Ricciardo with power units issue, this week is a bit of a relief. He's getting some points and starting to enjoy Formula One once again. Let's talk about Mercedes, second and fourth at the finish line. Valtteri Bottas in front of Lewis Hamilton. So this all happened after their pit stops. 1 pit stops, by the way, for Valtteri Bottas, 2 for Lewis Hamilton, which may sound surprising, but here is why. The cars do their pit stops. They're pretty close from each other, and unfortunately Lewis picks up some damage while going over some curbs. So the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton is not able to keep up with the Red Bulls, but also teammate Valtteri Bottas, who is over half a second faster than Hamilton after their pit stop. So they had a choice there. Do they stay with Hamilton in front and limit the damage to Verstappen, or do they go for the team result with Lando Norris that was catching up very quickly? And they decided to do a swap, letting Bottas in front of Hamilton go for the team play here. And I think this was the right call for Mercedes, because if they had stayed close, Norris would probably have overtaken both of the cars, considering that Hamilton was really slow compared to the others. Norris overtook Hamilton as if it was nothing. So if Bottas had been forced to stay behind, yeah, it would have been second place for Norris, but both Mercedes would have lost there. For Hamilton, it is a very disappointing race. It was damage limitation, and hopefully for them, the Silverstone Grand Prix in 2 weeks will be better. Let's remind you also that the Silverstone Grand Prix will be with this format of sprint qualifying, so it's going to be interesting to see what's happening with that. But Silverstone historically is a track that has suited the Mercedes, and this is also their home Grand Prix, so they will do everything in their power to cut Red Bull's momentum of now 5 race victories in a row since Azerbaijan. Is it 5? 4? 5? I don't remember. But yeah, Red Bull really on a roll. Yeah, I think it's a 5, whatever. Yeah, Mercedes needs to pick up the pace now. Yes, we're not halfway through the season and Red Bull has the advantage, but the table can turn very quickly in Formula 1. Let's talk about Ferrari now. Ferrari starting 10th and 12th, yeah, after Vettel had a penalty that put him 11. So Ferrari had a free choice of tire, went with the medium, which is almost what they wanted. They almost missed Q3 on purpose, in a sense that they did not want to go to Q3 on Saturday with the soft tire, so they stuck with the medium, even if it meant starting 11 and 12 outside the top 10, and it paid off. And it is the same that we've seen last week also. The Ferrari struggling maybe in qualifying, but their race pace in Austria was very, very good. They end the race with Carlos Sainz 5th and Charles Leclerc 8th. Sainz was in a different strategy, started on the hard tire, went very long, did one pit stop, and was on the medium while everyone around him was on the hard, so he had the race pace to do a lot of overtaking, which brought him in that 5th place. As for Charles Leclerc, he was fighting throughout the whole race, been in a few tangled with Sergio Perez, and for Perez, you know, it was a tough fight between both drivers, and 2 times Perez insisted and Leclerc put a wheel in the gravel. This led to Sergio getting 2 5 seconds penalty for pushing driver of the track. Were they earned, or was it too harsh? We can also debate that. We'll actually make a whole video on what I think of the penalties that we saw during the Austrian Grand Prix. By the way, a total of 7 penalties that were given to the various drivers. Some obvious, some of course up for debate, like in the case of Norris and Perez that we mentioned already. But it meant that Perez had 10-second penalty at the end of the race and just barely missed out on 5th place. He was, I think, 9.2 seconds in front of Carlos Sainz. So it meant that Sainz got 5th place. But for Leclerc, he had pace, but just not enough to overtake. Got stuck behind Perez for a while and then finishing behind Daniel Ricciardo in 7th. And many times we saw Leclerc making a move on Daniel and it just never worked. So tough fight, a bit disappointing for Charles. But you know, even if it's not where he wants to be. Overall, it is a good race for Ferrari, considering where they started. And between Leclerc and Perez, there's no hard feeling. They talk it off, and it's just hard racing sometimes. Who else do we have? Pierre Gasly, AlphaTauri. Good race overall for them. They started 6th and 7th, sadly finished 9th and 12th. And this is all due to the fact that they started on the soft tire, which nobody wanted. It forced them to do a 2-stop, and 2 stops just did not pay off really. They lost too much time in the pit, and it meant that Gasly finished 9th and Tsunoda outside of the point. Yuki Tsunoda also picking up 2 penalties for crossing the white line at the entry of the pit lane, which you are not allowed to do. And these penalties were earned, and it's Yuki's own fault, so no debate there. But yeah, AlphaTauri could have done probably better, but sadly were forced to a 2-stop. Still, they bring 2 points home, which is more than Alpine, which is more than Aston Martin. So in the fight for 5th in the championship, this is good for them. Let's talk about the heartbreak of the day. George Russell, P11, after being so close from finally getting points with Williams. George Russell, only a few laps short, was in a big fight with Fernando Alonso up until lap 67 or 68, and unfortunately Alonso had the better of George Russell, meaning that we have an Alpine in 10th and George only 11th. They have to see the positive in there. The Williams had some great pace in Austria, but sadly, I think it was a heartbreak, not just for George, but for pretty much everyone at the Williams team. You could see it on their face in the garage. They were devastated. But yeah, if they take the positive, they made it into Q3, and Alonso had also a great car, potentially a top 5 car, if not for the issues he's had in qualifying. So there's positive for Williams. It went well, and P11 will help them staying also 9th in the championship in front of Haas. Let's talk about Alpine. Fernando Alonso, P10, 1 point. Not where he wanted to be, obviously, since he could have started higher up the grid and scored a lot more. But all things considered, P10 is satisfying, probably the best they could do in perspective. Esteban Ocon, another very tough weekend for him. Out on lap 1 after a collision with, I believe, Kimi Raikkonen, and it was nobody's fault. Pierre was just sandwiched between Esteban was just sandwiched between 2 cars, and there was nowhere he could go, and 3 cars in a sandwich never ends well. So just tough luck for Esteban. After signing a new contract with Alpine, everything seems to go wrong now. Hopefully in Silverstone he can put everything back together and just get back where he was a few weeks ago. And meanwhile, of course, Alonso is doing a great job for Alpine. So if the 2 drivers can just put it together once again, they're going to have a great shot at this championship battle for 5th. Let's quickly finish with who do we have? Oh yes, Aston Martin. Did not talk about them. Aston Martin, no pace. They made it into Q3, but we're on the soft tire, so we're already on the back foot to start the race. Had to do 2 pit stops, and just like the AlphaTauri, it did not pay off really. Lance Stroll finishing only P13, and Vettel tangling up with Kimi Raikkonen on the very last lap of the race, and just taking each other's out. Otherwise, it would have been Kimi 12 and Vettel 13. And Stroll would have been 14, but overall it's just nothing worked for Aston Martin, and this is going to be rough on them because they are also in that fight for the 5th place of the championship. and considering they managed to score a point last week, they needed that today, and it's just not happening. Alfa Romeo, yeah, Raikkonen was running P12, had some great pace toward the end of the race, but once again, not a race where Alfa Romeo could have scored really. The Williams, since George was strong, pretty much left no chance to Alfa Romeo to make it into the point. But still, strong result, best, almost best of that C group of teams, if you want. And you know, again, if everything goes perfectly during our weekend and there's a bit of luck, Alfa Romeo will capitalize on that. And let's quickly finish with Haas, Mick Schumacher in front of Nikita Mazepin. Nothing really mentioned there. Still learning, and you know, it's just, I think, for pretty much everyone at Haas, a tough season, and they are hoping that it will end soon so that they can maybe come back on a winning streak next season. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you once again for watching. Remember to smash the like button and to subscribe to this channel so that you do not miss any update regarding the 2021 Formula 1 season. I will see you again later this week with a short video on my thoughts on the penalty that were given to the different drivers, especially Norris and Perez during this Austrian Grand Prix. Were the stewards too strict or not? And I will also see you for the next race in 2 weeks in Silverstone. Thank you everyone for watching, and see you next time.